Sweetheart, use his card. He's got plenty saved, my girlfriend said, handing my card to her daughter without my permission. She went straight to the mall, designer bag, shoes, a $1,200 perfume set. The cashier rang it all up, inserted the card, looked at the screen and said, "Sorry, this card is..." I should have known something was wrong the second Lila smiled at the cashier, like this was all perfectly normal, and said, "Sweetheart, use his card. He's got plenty saved." She said it to her daughter, not to me. Not even looking at me, just handed over my debit card like I was some quiet little bank standing beside the perfume display. The card she had taken from my wallet, without asking. Her daughter, Macy, was 16, standing there in brand new sunglasses, with a designer bag already hooked over her elbow, a shoebox tucked under one arm, and a glossy gift set of perfume that cost more than I used to spend on groceries in a month when my son was little. $1,200 just for the perfume set. The whole counter was covered in things she had picked in under 20 minutes. I stared at my own card in that girl's hand and felt my throat go tight. The cashier scanned the last box, smiled the tired smile people in malls always have, and said the total. Macy slid the card in. I finally found my voice. "What are you doing?" Lila didn't even flinch. "Relax. It's for homecoming weekend." She needed a few things. Needed. That word sat there between us like a joke. The cashier looked at me, then at Lila, then back at the screen. I could tell she knew something was off. People know. They always know. Then the register beeped. The cashier's smile disappeared. She pulled the card out and said, carefully, "Sorry, this card is locked." For 1 second, nobody moved. Macy's face changed first. Confusion, then embarrassment, then anger. Lila turned to me so fast, I almost laughed. "You locked your card?" Yes, I had done it maybe 30 seconds earlier. The minute I realized my wallet felt wrong in my jacket pocket and saw my card in Macy's hand. I still remember how cold my fingers felt around my phone. Lock card. Confirm. Done. Macy looked like I had slapped her in front of the whole store. "Mom," Lila lowered her voice, but not enough. "Steven, don't do this here." That was the part that nearly got me. Not, "Why did you take my card?" Not, "I'm sorry." Just, "Don't do this here." Like I was the one making a scene. I looked at the counter again, the bag, the shoes, the perfume, a silk scarf tossed in at the end. Little gold hardware shining under store lights. A small mountain of things nobody had asked me about, nobody had mentioned, nobody had thought I might want to say in paying for. And next to me, my son Ben was holding 2 plain paper shopping bags from the sporting goods store. One had a discounted pair of hiking socks. The other had a clearance fleece I had promised him for our next trail weekend, because the weather was still cold in the ridgeline. He was 12. Quiet kid. Careful kid. The kind who reads trail maps for fun and always says thank you to cashiers. The kind who notices everything and asks about almost nothing. He looked at that counter full of luxury things, then at his own little bag, and then down at the floor. That look hit me harder than anything Lila said. I should have known. I really should have. My name is Steven. I was 39 then, working as a park ranger in western North Carolina. Mostly forest patrol, rescue response, trail maintenance oversight, and visitor contact. I lived in a modest house outside Bryson City with my son. Ben's mother had been out of the picture for years. It was the 2 of us and a dog with 1 crooked ear, and a porch that always needed repainting. It was not a glamorous life. It was a steady one. I liked steady. My job paid enough if I stayed careful. I picked up extra seasonal work when I could. I kept an emergency fund because search and rescue had taught me one thing early. When something goes wrong, it usually goes wrong all at once. Lila loved that about me in the beginning. At least that's what she said. She said I made her feel safe. She said I was dependable. She said she'd never had a man in her life who actually planned ahead. She said it with that soft smile and those warm hands around a coffee cup. And I believed her because I wanted to. She was pretty bright when she wanted to be, and very good at sounding vulnerable in a way that made you feel useful. She had Macy from a previous relationship. She worked part-time at a salon, picked up hours here and there, and always had some story about why money was tight just this once. At first, it was normal things. Her transmission went out. I covered half. Her rent was short after her ex paid late. I helped. Her phone got shut off. I paid it because she needed it for work. Then it got quieter, more casual. Can you grab groceries? Can you put this on your card and I'll send it later? Can you handle dinner tonight? Can you book the hotel and I'll get you back after payday? She never really paid me back. Not fully, not in any organized way. Sometimes she'd buy takeout and call us even. Sometimes she'd pay for a movie and say, "See, I'm not using you." The thing is, you can live a long time inside little lies if they arrive one at a time. I told myself it was a partnership. I told myself blended families took adjustment. I told myself Macy was a teenager, and teenagers were selfish sometimes. I told myself Ben was just shy, and that the awkwardness between the kids would settle if we kept trying. But there was a pattern, and once I finally saw it, I couldn't unsee it. When we all went out to dinner, Macy ordered whatever she wanted, and Ben looked at the right side of the menu first. When there were just because gifts, Macy got them. Ben got a smile, and we'll do something special later. If I booked a cabin weekend, Macy invited a friend and needed spending money. Ben packed his own snacks from home to save room in the budget. Last fall, I paid for a beach trip Lila insisted would help us bond as a family. Ben spent half that trip alone on a balcony reading because Macy complained he was boring, and Lila told me not to be too sensitive about teenage girl moods. At Christmas, I bought Macy wireless earbuds because Lila said she'd been wanting them for months. Ben got a hand-knit beanie from Lila and a gas station hot chocolate on the drive home because she didn't know what boys his age liked. I saw all of it. I let too much of it slide. That part is on me. The mall wasn't just about a stolen card. It was about years of being treated like the backup wallet in a family, where my son was expected to be grateful for scraps and I was expected to smile while funding the imbalance. What made it worse was the timing. 2 weeks earlier, I had told Lila I was not paying for Macy's private homecoming package. Not the hair trial, not the nail appointment, not the professional makeup booking, not the limo add-on she mentioned like it was no big deal. I said it calmly over dinner at my kitchen table, while Ben did homework in the living room. I remember every word because I'd practiced them in my truck first. "I'll help with dinner out before the dance," I told her. "But I'm not funding luxury extras. That's for you and her father to figure out." She stared at me like I had changed languages. Then she laughed once and said, "Wow." I stayed calm. "I'm serious." She pushed her plate away and asked if I understood how humiliating it was for a teenage girl to feel less than her friends. I said, "I understand what budgets are." She didn't yell. That would have been easier. She went cold. After that, there were little punishments. She canceled a weekend we had planned because Macy didn't feel welcomed. She stopped coming by as often unless it involved errands or dinner. She made comments about how Ben was lucky I was so responsible, because not every man saves money like a squirrel in winter. She meant it as a joke, but not really. Then came the mall. I think she believed she could force the issue in public, corner me, shame me into paying because there was a cashier there, bright lights, other shoppers, Macy already posing with items she had no business carrying to a register. Maybe that trick had worked before. Just not that day. The cashier held the card out to me. I took it and slid it back into my wallet. Lila's face was rigid. "Unlock it." "No." Macy gave a short, sharp laugh that sounded too old for her age. "Are you serious right now?" I looked at her. Very. Ben was standing beside me so still it hurt to look at him. Lila stepped closer. "Stephen, she's a child." I almost said "so is my son." Instead, I said, "Then stop using her to spend money you don't have." Her eyes widened at that. Not because I was wrong, because I had said it out loud. Macy snapped, "Mom, let's just go." But Lila wasn't done. "You embarrassed us." I looked at the counter again. "You took my card from my wallet. You would have paid if you weren't being petty." There it was. Not confused, not sorry, just entitled. Ben shifted beside me, and I looked down. He wouldn't meet my eyes. His ears were red. That boy had seen enough public tension to know the safest thing was silence. That was my moment. Not when she stole from me. Not when Macy piled luxury goods on a counter. When my son made himself smaller because a grown woman had decided my money was community property and his comfort didn't matter, I pulled out my phone again, opened my banking app, and took one more step. Lila must have seen it in my face. "What are you doing now?" I didn't answer her. I moved the balance from my checking account to the savings account she couldn't access, then to the separate emergency account linked at another bank, the one I had never told her much about because some part of me still knew better, even when the rest of me was busy pretending. Then I removed my card from the digital wallet on her phone. Then I canceled the shared grocery card I'd added for convenience 6 months earlier. Then I turned off the automatic transfer that had been going to her account every Friday morning. $400 a week. I had started it after her rent jumped, and she cried in my truck outside our apartment complex, saying she just needed help for a month or two. That had turned into 9 months, nearly $15,000. I had never once made her sign anything, never called it a loan, never forced a conversation because I kept telling myself we were building something. We were. Just not what I thought. When I finished, I put my phone in my pocket and looked at her. "No more access," I said. Her expression changed. She knew. "What did you do?" "I took you off everything," Macy said. "Mom?" Lila's voice dropped low. "Stephen, stop." "No, not here." "Yes, here. Since you thought this was the place to take my card and spend my money." The cashier suddenly became very interested in folding tissue paper. I didn't blame her. Lila tried another approach. "Softer now. You're overreacting." I shook my head. "I'm reacting exactly enough." Then I said the sentence I should have said months before. "I'm not your backup bank." Silence. Macy looked between us, horrified now in a different way. Not because she understood the money, because she was finally seeing her mother lose control of the script. Lila folded her arms. "After everything we've been through, this is how you act?" I said. "After the way you've treated Ben, this is how I should have acted a long time ago." That landed. Because she knew. Maybe not every detail, maybe not every small cut, but enough. Ben finally looked up at me then, just for a second. I'll remember that look the rest of my life. Not triumph, not relief exactly. Recognition. Like he was trying to figure out whether this moment was real. I picked up his shopping bags. "Come on, buddy." We walked away from the counter while Lila hissed my name behind me. I didn't turn back. The ride home was quiet. Ben watched the trees slide by through the passenger window, the paper bag with his fleece tucked between his boots. About 10 minutes in, he asked, "Are you mad at me?" I had to pull over. I parked near an overlook where you could see the winter line of the ridges, blue and gray under a cloudy sky. And I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, because if I answered too fast, my voice was going to break. Then I turned to him and said, "No, not even a little." He nodded once, but kept looking forward. I said, "None of that was your fault." Another nod. Then, very quietly, "I didn't need the fleece today." That was Ben, always trimming his own needs to fit whatever room was left. I said, "I know." He swallowed and asked, "Were they going to use your card for all of it?" "Yes." He stared at the dashboard. "That's a lot." "Yes." He was silent for a while, then said the thing that settled everything for me. "She always gets the big stuff. No drama, no tears. Just a fact." I closed my eyes for 1 second. "I know," I said again. That night, I packed up everything Lila had left at my house. Not in anger, just steadily. A sweater on the chair, hair products in the bathroom, a pair of sandals under the guest bed, 2 coffee mugs she called hers, the phone charger by the couch. I put it all in one storage bin and set it by the front door. Then I sat at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and wrote down every recurring thing I needed to sever. Weekly transfer, canceled. Shared grocery card, canceled. Streaming account, password changed. Auto insurance add-on I had covered for her because her rate was bad, removed. Weekend cabin reservation for Macy's, pre-homecoming girls getaway that I had stupidly paid the deposit on 3 days before our dinner conversation, canceled. That one felt especially clean. I called the rental office, ate the cancellation fee, and ended it. One financial move. One boundary, really. Everything flowed from that single decision. No more funding a household that treated my son like an afterthought. No more pretending access was love. No more paying to keep peace that only ever cost us dignity. The texts started before bedtime. First, Lila, you are unbelievable. Unlock the card. Macy is humiliated. You had no right to make us look like that. Then another. You canceled the transfer. Then, we need to talk tonight. I wrote back exactly once. I will arrange pickup for your things tomorrow. You no longer have access to my account or cards. Do not involve Ben in this. She called 8 times after that. I didn't answer. Around 11, Macy texted from her own number. You just ruined everything for me. I stared at it for a long time. Then I put the phone down without replying. A kid only knows the script she's handed. That didn't excuse her. But I wasn't going to fight a teenager by text at my kitchen table while my son slept down the hall. The next morning, Lila showed up. Of course she did. Not alone either. Her sister drove her over. Maybe as backup, maybe as audience. I stepped onto the porch before she could knock twice. Ben was inside eating cereal. Lila looked tired and beautiful in the polished way some people do when they're furious. Hair done, makeup perfect, big sunglasses even though the sky was gray. She pointed at the storage bin by the door. So that's it. Yes, you're throwing us away over one misunderstanding. I almost laughed. One misunderstanding, I said. Is that what we're calling theft now? Her mouth tightened. I took your card because you forced me to do things the hard way. That sentence told me more than anything else could have. Not regret, not shame, just resentment that I had interrupted access. I kept my voice level. You took my card without permission. You tried to spend money we never agreed on. You have relied on me financially for months while treating my son like he doesn't count. This is over. Her sister shifted awkwardly by the car. Lila lowered her voice. Macy made mistakes. She's a teenage girl. She likes nice things. That's normal. I said, what's not normal is teaching her that other people's money belongs to her. She took off her sunglasses then, like tears might help. You know how hard I've had it. I do. And you know I love you. I let that sit between us. Maybe she believed it in her own way. Maybe she loved what I provided and confused that with love for me. I said, love doesn't reach into my wallet. That finally cracked her calm. She called me cold. She called me self-righteous. She said I had let Ben turn me against them, which told me she understood even less than I thought she did. I stepped back and picked up the storage bin. Take your things, Lila. She didn't move. So I set it down on the porch beside her and said the last line I needed to say. I won't fund a family my son isn't part of. Her face went blank in that frightening way people get when the performance stops and there's nothing left under it except anger. She grabbed the bin so hard the lid popped loose. A sandal fell onto my porch. Her sister bent and picked it up. Then they left. After that came the campaign. Missed calls from unknown numbers. A long voicemail from her friend telling me I had abandoned 2 women. A message from Lila's cousin saying, real men provide. A paragraph from Lila saying she never asked for luxury, which would have been funnier if I hadn't seen the perfume set with my own eyes. Then the guilt took a different shape. She told people I was stingy. She told people I had promised Macy the shopping trip and backed out at the register. She told one neighbor I was controlling about money. That one almost impressed me. The thing about liars is they usually tell on themselves. They pick the accusation they're most familiar with. I didn't defend myself to everyone. I didn't send screenshots. I didn't gather a jury. I just held the line. Ben noticed the quiet first. No more sudden dinner invitations that ended with me paying. No more last-minute family errands. No more weekends reworked around Macy's wants. No more tension in the truck. About a week later, we went out early on a Saturday for a trail check near Deep Creek. I had permission to walk the lower route off-duty because one of the bridges needed eyes on it after heavy rain. Ben came with me carrying hot chocolate in a thermos and wearing the clearance fleece from the mall. It fit him a little big in the shoulders. He liked it that way. We hiked under bare trees with the creek talking beside us, and for the first time in months, maybe longer, it felt like I could hear my own life again. Halfway up the trail, Ben said, "Are we still doing the spring camping trip?" I looked over. Of course. He kicked a small rock off the path. "Just us? Unless you want to invite somebody." He shook his head. Just us is good. That nearly undid me. People think kids need big speeches after something breaks. Most of the time, they need consistency. Breakfast on time, their own blanket, a plan kept, a door that stays closed to the wrong people. So I gave him that. I took extra shifts and moved the money I'd been sending Lila into a separate travel envelope and the house repair fund. I replaced the back porch light. I bought Ben a used pair of binoculars he'd been eyeing at the outdoor consignment store. I signed us up for a weekend Junior Ranger photography workshop in April. Little things, honest things, things that belonged to our actual life. Lila tried one more time a month later. She sent a text with no anger in it, just a photo. Macy at homecoming in a cheaper dress than planned, standing beside some gym decorations with a tight smile. Under it, she wrote, "Hope you're happy." I stared at that message and felt something I didn't expect. Not guilt, sadness maybe, for what she had taught that girl, for how thoroughly she had tied love to spending, for the way she still thought the point was the dress. I wrote back one sentence. I hope she learns she deserves honesty more than luxury. Then I blocked the number. That was the end of direct contact. Spring came slowly that year. Wet ground, green pushing up through leaves, dogwoods starting white along the roads. On the first warm evening, that really felt like the season had changed, Ben and I ate dinner on the porch. Burgers, corn on the cob, and one of those cheap grocery store pies he liked more than bakery cake, because he said the crust tasted like school bake sales. The porch boards still needed paint. The dog slept under the table. Ben had his binoculars around his neck even though it was getting dark. At one point, he got up, went inside, and came back with his old allowance jar. It was clear plastic, half full of folded bills, and too many quarters. He set it by my plate. "What's this?" I asked. "For camping," he said. I looked at him. "You don't need to pay for camping." He shrugged in that careful way he had. "I know. I just wanted to help." I put my hand over the jar and slid it back toward him. "No, buddy. That money is yours." He started to argue, but I shook my head. Then I said the thing I should have been teaching him all along, not just with words, but with example. In this house, helping is a gift. It's not something people get to take from you. He looked at me for a long second. Then he nodded and took the jar back inside. It was a small moment, quiet, easy to miss if you weren't living it. But that was the closure, not revenge, not some dramatic public apology, not Lila admitting everything. People like that usually don't. It was my son learning that love did not come with a hidden register screen. That being kind did not mean being available for use. That a man could set down his wallet and still stand tall. We went camping 2 weeks later. Nothing fancy. Just a state site near the water, our old tent, a cooler full of sandwiches, and the battered camp stove I'd had since before Ben was born. He wore the fleece from the mall both mornings because the air was cold before sunrise. On the second night, after the fire burned low, he leaned against my shoulder and said, "It's better now." I didn't ask what part. I knew. I looked out past the trees, where the dark held steady and clean, and I said, "Yeah, it is." And it was. Because money has a way of making people show themselves. Because the moment someone treats your child like a cost and you like a resource, the truth is already in the room. Because the boundary that changes your life usually sounds simple when you finally say it. No more, not my card, not my savings, not my son's place in his own home. That was the lesson I took from all of it. If someone only reaches for your hand when they want what's in it, they were never holding on to you. And if your child goes quiet in the presence of someone you keep excusing, you already have your answer.